There are battles we fight that no one ever sees. Not because we want to hide them, but because we don't know how to show them. They happen in silence, inside the hollow of the mind, in the depth of the heart, in the solitude of rooms where the world never looks. They are the battles fought behind smiles, in the shadows of laughter, and beneath the strength we project to everyone else. This is the story of those battles, uncelebrated, unnoticed, and yet more powerful than any victory screamed from the rooftops. You walk into a room, exchange hellos, wear your well-rehearsed face of normalcy, and inside, you're breaking. But no one sees the fracture lines because they've learned to admire your strength, not suspect your struggle. You've become good at playing the part. You always have. You've trained yourself to move through pain as if it were background noise. You've taught yourself to function on low hope, to chase goals not out of joy, but survival, and to pretend confidence when your spirit is trembling. And in this invisible war zone within you, every day becomes a quiet triumph. It's not always about depression, not always anxiety. Sometimes it's simply that deep, gnawing exhaustion of always having to hold it together. It's the emotional fatigue of living up to the expectations of others, even when you feel hollow inside. It's trying to be okay for your family, your friends, your job, your dreams, when you don't even feel okay for yourself. And somehow, people expect you to rise every time. They see your highlights, not your bruises. They hear your achievements, but not the cracking in your voice when you pray at night. They admire your glow without knowing how dim your inner flame has become. You've been bleeding internally, and yet you never let it stain your shirt. You've mastered silence, but not peace. It begins with the small things, like waking up and wondering what today wants from you. You stare at the ceiling, not because you're lazy, but because you're negotiating with yourself to rise, to face everything again. Some mornings are heavier than others, and no one understands why. They think you slept too much or not enough, that you're disorganized or just moody. But they don't see the inner dialogue you have to endure every morning just to remind yourself that you matter. And when you do rise, when you put your feet on the floor and move, no one applauds. No one claps for the effort it took just to participate in your own life. These are the battles no one writes about. These are the victories that are never posted on social media. But they are real, and they are sacred. Growth rarely looks like what people imagine. It doesn't always arrive as a transformation montage or as loud declarations of new beginnings. Sometimes, growth is you saying no for the first time. Sometimes, it's you letting go of a toxic relationship even when it leaves you lonelier than before. Sometimes, it's you failing, again, but deciding not to hate yourself for it. Sometimes growth is learning how to breathe again without guilt. Learning how to love yourself without needing permission. It's quiet and messy and hard to explain. You try to tell someone, but how do you describe an inner war that's been raging for years? How do you make them understand that you're not sad, you're just tired? That you're not broken, you're just healing in slow motion? And there's no manual for this, no instructions for how to fix what isn't visibly broken, no step-by-step guide for dealing with emotions you were taught to suppress. Maybe you were raised in a household where being strong meant not crying. Maybe you were told your feelings were dramatic. Maybe society told you that vulnerability was weakness. So you built armor, layer upon layer, until one day you forgot what it felt like to be soft. You became invincible to everyone but yourself. And in the echo of your silence, your unhealed wounds festered. But still, you moved. Still, you functioned. You laughed at jokes, made plans, sent emails, cleaned your house, paid your bills. No one suspected you were dying inside sometimes. And still, you rose. There's something powerful about quiet strength. The kind that doesn't need validation. The kind that shows up every day even when the soul wants to disappear. You don't want to be a hero. You just want to breathe without effort. You want to exist without performance. But every room you enter demands a version of you that hides the truth. And so, you edit your story for public consumption. You say, "I'm fine," because it's easier than unraveling. You say, "I'm tired," because it's more socially acceptable than saying, "I'm drowning." You say, "It's been a busy week," because the truth is too long, too deep, too painful to explain in a casual conversation. And slowly, you begin to forget what it means to tell the truth at all. But there is something sacred happening in you, something holy in your persistence. Even when no one notices, your growth is real. You're learning to forgive yourself. You're learning to trust the process. You're healing even when it hurts. And that growth, it matters. It may not be photogenic. It may not get likes or views. But it's there, in the background of your life, like a seed breaking through the soil, fragile but determined. You may not see the full bloom yet, but the roots are growing stronger. You are becoming, and that's enough. Some days you'll relapse. You'll fall back into old patterns. You'll think you failed, but that too is part of the process. Healing isn't linear. Growth isn't a straight line. There are setbacks, pauses, regressions, but none of it erases your progress. None of it cancels your worth. You are allowed to stumble. You are allowed to rest. You are allowed to not have it all figured out. And if all you did today was breathe and try, that's a win. That's something. That's survival. And survival in this world is a victory no one talks about enough. You see, your story is powerful. Not because it's perfect. Not because it ends in triumph. But because it's honest. Because it's real. And in a world obsessed with highlights and hustle, your quiet truth is revolutionary. The way you wake up despite the heaviness. The way you still try, despite the doubt. The way you continue, despite the fear. That's growth. That's courage. That's beauty. You are not weak for struggling. You are not broken for needing help. You are not a burden for feeling deeply. The very fact that you're still here, still showing up for your life, is a miracle in motion. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. Don't let anyone diminish your silent battles just because they can't see them. They don't need to. You know what you've endured. You know the nights you cried and the mornings you rose anyway. You know the effort it takes to smile when your soul is sore. You know the strength it takes to love when your heart still aches. You know. And that's enough. So the next time you feel invisible, the next time you feel like your growth doesn't count because it's not loud or obvious, remember this. The deepest transformations happen in the dark. Just like seeds, you are growing roots in the soil of your own experience. You are preparing for bloom. And when your time comes, when your healing has hardened into wisdom, you will rise, not just for yourself, but for others like you. Because someone else is watching. Someone else is quietly fighting. Someone else needs to know they're not alone. And your survival, your persistence, could be the permission they need to keep going. And maybe one day you'll tell your story. Maybe one day you'll say, "I fought and I won." Not because you conquered the world, but because you didn't let the world conquer you. And that, quiet as it may be, is the loudest kind of triumph. As you continue to fight these silent battles, something begins to shift, slowly at first, then more steadily as time goes on. You may not even notice it happening. The change is so subtle, so quiet, that it's almost imperceptible. It's the way the sun rises after days of rain, slowly, almost reluctantly, but inevitable. You find yourself, one day, simply breathing a little easier. Not because everything is perfect, but because you've learned to live with the imperfections. The weight you've carried for so long, though it may not have lifted completely, has softened. You are no longer dragging it behind you. It's become a part of you, woven into the fabric of your being, no longer a burden, but a story. And that story, your story, is what shapes the person you are becoming. Healing, as it turns out, is less like an immediate fix and more like an ongoing process. It is not a quick recovery, nor is it linear. You may feel like you're stumbling through the dark, lost in your own thoughts, not sure which direction to move next. But somehow, in the midst of that confusion, you begin to gather pieces of yourself that you thought were long lost. The person you thought you had to be, perfect, polished, without flaws, begins to fade into the background. Instead, you start to see yourself as you truly are. Complex, multifaceted, and, most importantly, human. You realize that it's okay to be fragile. It's okay to be broken. In fact, that fragility is a part of your strength. You begin to recognize that every tear, every moment of doubt, every time you questioned your worth, has only served to build a more resilient version of yourself. When you first enter the battle of inner growth, it feels like fighting against a storm. There's no clear path, no immediate reward, and often, no one to guide you. You wonder if it will ever stop, if the storm will ever settle. But slowly, you start to notice something remarkable. The storm doesn't destroy you. It reshapes you. It sculpts you into something you never imagined. The pieces of yourself that once felt broken, shattered, and useless begin to come together in new and unexpected ways. Your scars become symbols, not of weakness, but of endurance. The struggles you thought would crush you become the stepping stones to a new form of strength, the kind that is born from within. This process is never glamorous. You won't be posting pictures of your progress, showing how much stronger you are now, because healing happens in the most personal, private spaces. It's in the quiet, in the moments of reflection, in the long conversations you have with yourself when no one is watching. It's in those hard days when you have to remind yourself to keep going, even when every part of you wants to give up. It's in that slow, painful realization that growth is not something you can rush. It happens when you're ready, not when society says you should be. And often, that means taking the time to process the pain you've been carrying, to confront it head-on, and to slowly make peace with it. The transformation that occurs is not just emotional or mental, it's physical too. When you change from the inside, it reflects on the outside. You might not notice it at first, but others will. People will start to see the glow that comes from self-acceptance. They'll notice the calmness in your demeanor, the quiet confidence in your actions. You don't have to try anymore. You don't have to put on the show or the mask. You are who you are, and that is enough. You start to trust yourself more deeply. The voice in your head, the one that used to tell you that you weren't good enough, starts to fade. You learn to trust your instincts, to listen to your heart, and to make decisions that are aligned with your truest self. It's not an easy process. It's often uncomfortable and messy. But with each day, you find that you've become a little bit more whole, a little bit more confident in your own skin. The transformation also leads you to understand that growth doesn't mean perfection. You're not striving to become someone who never falters, never struggles, or never has moments of doubt. Instead, you are learning that growth means learning how to rise after every fall, how to heal from the wounds, and how to keep moving forward even when the path is unclear. You begin to understand that your imperfections are not the things that make you weak. They are the very things that make you human. They are the things that allow you to connect with others in a deeper way. When you embrace your flaws, when you accept the cracks and breaks as part of your story, you begin to see that the battle was never about defeating your weaknesses. It was about learning to love them, to work with them, and to find strength in them. There are days when the old voices resurface, the ones that tell you that you're not good enough, that you'll never make it, that you're still broken and unworthy of the love and peace you crave. But now, when they appear, you don't let them take root. You've learned how to shut them down, how to confront them with the truth of your growth. You've learned that your worth is not determined by your struggles, but by your ability to rise from them, to transform the pain into purpose. And that, perhaps, is the most powerful form of growth. It's not just about changing your external circumstances or achieving outward success. It's about learning to live with yourself, to love yourself, and to recognize your own worth despite everything you've been through. The process of transformation isn't easy. You'll have setbacks, doubts, moments of uncertainty. There will be days when you feel like you're back at square one, questioning everything you've worked so hard to overcome. But what you'll also realize is that those setbacks don't mean you're failing. They mean you're growing. It's in the tough times that your resilience is tested, and it's through those tests that you find your true strength. You begin to see that your growth is not about avoiding challenges, but about learning how to handle them when they come. It's about understanding that each obstacle is an opportunity for learning, for healing, and for becoming stronger than you were before. The silent battles you've fought have brought you here. They've shaped you into a person who is stronger, wiser, and more compassionate. You've learned how to stand tall, even when you feel small. You've learned how to love yourself, even when it feels impossible. And as you continue on your journey, remember this: growth is not about the destination. It's about the journey. It's about the quiet victories, the small steps forward, the moments when you choose to rise again, even when it feels like the weight of the world is pressing down on you. It's about knowing, deep in your bones, that you are capable of enduring, of evolving, and of emerging from the shadows as a stronger, more powerful version of yourself. There comes a moment in every person's journey, whether in the middle of the battle or long after it's been fought, when you finally realize that the wars you've waged were not meant to destroy you. They were meant to refine you. All the silent struggles you endured, the weight you carried alone, the battles you fought quietly in your mind, have all led you to this place of understanding. You are no longer defined by your struggles. You are defined by your resilience. You are defined by your ability to stand in the face of uncertainty, to keep moving forward when every part of you wants to give up, and to rise each time you fall. The beauty of this journey is not in the fact that you've conquered everything, because in truth, no one conquers it all. It is in the way you've learned to live with yourself, to accept the parts of you that once felt broken, and to embrace them as the very source of your strength. You see now that there is no perfect version of you that exists outside of the messy, vulnerable, and sometimes painful process of growth. The perfect you doesn't live in some future version of yourself that you keep striving for. The perfect you exists in the moment you fully accept who you are, right here and right now. You've spent so much time fighting against your flaws, trying to hide them, to outrun them, to fix them. But here's the secret. Your flaws are not your enemy. They never were. They are the very elements that make you unique, that allow you to connect with others, that allow you to see the world in a way that only you can. It is in those quiet, hidden struggles that you've learned the most important lessons, the lessons that have shaped you into the person you are today. Each scar, each wound, each quiet, painful battle has built you into someone who is deeply resilient, someone who can walk through the hardest moments of life and come out on the other side stronger, wiser, and more compassionate. At some point, you'll realize that the battles you fought were not the result of some failure or weakness, but part of the journey to discovering your true power. Because what you've learned in the process is that true strength doesn't come from being invincible. It comes from being vulnerable. It comes from allowing yourself to feel, to experience pain, to grieve, and to heal. It comes from showing up, not in spite of your weaknesses, but because of them. You are not meant to be perfect. You are meant to be whole. And wholeness doesn't come from denying parts of yourself, but from accepting all of who you are, both light and shadow. As you continue to step into your power, you begin to see the world differently. The things that once seemed overwhelming or insurmountable now feel more manageable. You've learned to trust yourself in a way that you never did before. You trust your instincts, your decisions, your worth. You understand that the road ahead will never be free of challenges, but you no longer fear those challenges. You know that you can handle whatever comes your way because you've faced your deepest fears already. You've learned to walk through the fire and not be consumed by it. You've learned that you are the one who gets to define your story, not the circumstances, not the opinions of others, not your past failures. The internal battles you've fought in silence have made you into someone who can face the external world with courage and grace. Your strength is not the absence of fear or pain, but your ability to show up in spite of it. The moments when you feel most vulnerable are often the moments when you are most powerful. It's in those moments that you realize the true power of embracing your journey, even the parts that are difficult, because they are the ones that make you who you are. They are the moments that lead you to your deepest self-discovery, to understanding your true worth, and to unlocking your full potential. You don't need to wait for validation from the outside world anymore. You don't need approval or recognition to know that you are enough. You've already learned that your worth comes from within. The battles you fought were never about proving yourself to others. They were about proving to yourself that you are strong, that you are capable, and that you can overcome anything life throws your way. It was about showing yourself that you have the strength to keep going, even when no one is watching, even when no one understands. The people who surround you may never truly understand the silent battles you've fought. They may never know the depth of your struggles, the pain you've endured, or the courage it took to rise again after each fall. But that doesn't matter. What matters is that you know. You know the journey you've been on. You know the effort it took to heal, to forgive, and to grow. You know the inner battles you've fought and won. And that's where your true power lies. Not in the recognition of others, but in the quiet, steadfast knowing that you are enough, that you are worthy, and that you are capable of living a life that is aligned with your truest self. This is your power. The power to keep going when everything inside you says to quit. The power to love yourself when you've been taught to hate parts of yourself. The power to trust that, even when the road ahead is uncertain, you have everything you need inside you to walk it with confidence. You are not defined by the things you've endured. You are defined by the way you've learned to rise from them. You are defined by the way you've learned to show up, even when it felt like the world was against you. And you are defined by the quiet strength that you carry with you, whether anyone sees it or not. So as you continue on your journey, remember this: you are enough, just as you are. You have faced the darkest parts of yourself and emerged stronger. You have fought battles no one will ever see and won victories no one will ever know about. But that's okay, because you know. And in the end, that's all that matters. The silent battles, the ones that are fought and won in the solitude of your own heart, are the ones that shape you. They are the ones that make you who you are meant to be. And they are the ones that will continue to guide you as you step into your true power, your truest self. You are not just surviving, you are thriving. And the quiet victories you've won, those are the ones that matter the most.